All right, so in the last video, we talked about the exterior angle theorem. And remember, the exterior angle theorem essentially states that the exterior angles of any convex polygon is always going to be 360 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do the problem we did earlier, where we had we had one interior angle, and we had to figure out how many sides there were. But I'm going to do it in an indirect manner. I'm going to do it a little bit different. So let's suppose we have a very similar problem, except this time we know, right, and we know that it's a regular polygon, right? So we have a regular polygon where one of the angles, okay, one of the angles is 170 degrees, 170 degrees. These are pretty big polygons here, okay? So regular polygon was 170 degrees. Now the way that I had you guys approach it is I said, okay, well we know that there are n of these. We don't know what the n is, but we know that there are n of them. So if we add them all up, right, 170 plus 170 plus 170, and we did this until we got all of them, this would be what the s is. This is what the sum of the angles are. But we don't know how many 170, so it wouldn't make sense to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 170 times the number of sides, right, times the number of angles. This right here is the sum. But there's a second equation. We also know that the sum of the angles is equal to the number of sides minus 2. Remember, the number of triangles, number of sides minus 2 times 180. So if I wanted to, I could either figure it out with this equation or figure it out with this equation. The good news is that the sum of the interior angles are identical for both of these equations, which means we can say 170n is equal, distribute this through, 180n minus 360 degrees. Now I'm going to do this problem a little bit different. I've been subtracting the 170 to both sides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the 180 this time. So we're going to subtract the 180n from both sides of our equation. This is going to give us a negative 10n here, and we're going to get a negative 360. Next, I'm going to divide both sides by that negative 10, and what we end up finding out is that n is equal to 36. So what we're talking about here is a 36 gone. All right. But my idea is that we can actually figure this out in a different manner. We don't have to do it this way. Instead of using the sum of the interior angles, right? Because that's what this is. This is the sum of the interior angles. What if I was to use the exterior angles? So if we know that this guy right here is one of the interior angles, remember, the relationship between the interior angle and the exterior angle is that these two angles, when added together, have to equal 180 degrees. These guys are a linear pair right here. So this guy is the exterior angle. Now the good news about the exterior angle is we know that every sum, no matter the number of sides, every sum of exterior angles will always add up to 360 degrees. So the sum, right, so that's a sigma, sum of the exterior angles is equal to 360 degrees. We don't have to do this equation over here. We know it's going to add up to 360. So what we could do instead is we could say, well, if we added all the 10s together, right? If we added all the 10s together, 10 plus 10 plus 10, and do that until we got them all added, that'll have to add up to 360. The problem is we don't know how many 10s there are. But we do know that there are n sides. So we can take all of the 10s, and there are n of them, and multiply it by n. So we can say 10n, all of them have to add up to the 360. Have to add up to the 360. Divide by 10, and we find out that the n is equal to 36, the same thing that we found out right there. So it's just an alternate way, a different way you can approach the same exact question. Instead of looking at the interior angles, you can now take a look at the exterior angles. All right, so let's try this one more time with a different problem. So what if this time, instead of having a 170 degrees, what if we had a 140 degrees? So let's say that the interior angle is 140 degrees, and it's a regular polygon. And we're trying to figure out the number of sides. Well, there's two ways to do it. The first way, we can do the 140n, right? The 140 times the number of sides will equal the s. We'll have to equal the n minus 2 times 180. That's one approach. That's one way we can solve it. This will solve for the n. But there's a second approach. If you know that the interior angle is 140, then you know that the exterior angle is 40. So you don't have to do it this way. This is an option. You can have a second way of approaching the problem. So the exterior angle has to be 40 degrees. And we know that all n of those 40 degrees must add up to what the exterior angles always add up to no matter what, 360. And we can solve either of these two equations, but you'll notice that this equation here is going to be much simpler, but it is a much more difficult thing to understand because it's talking about the exterior angles when the question was talking about the interior angles. It's just a different approach to the problem though. So we divide both sides by 40 and we get n equals 9. So we're talking about a non-agon, a 9-sided polygon, or the 9-gon. All right, take a look at the homework. Try your best. If you have any questions, come back on Monday and we'll handle it. Have a great weekend.